was exposed to drugs at a very young age in Scotland when I was 12. The first drug I ever took was hash. It was introduced to me by the older boys, like, because I was so tall. I always hung about with boys 5, 6 years older than me. So the first drug I ever took was hash. Yeah, I wanted to fit in, you know. Everybody was doing it in the area I came from, all the older ones, so all the ones that didn't take it just got slagged, you know. Just got made a fool of. Taking drugs was acceptable, it was what you did, like, everybody did it. It was a normal thing to do. But looking back now, I know it was wrong, but when you're that age, I was 12, I had to fit in. I had no other choice but to take drugs from the area I lived. My life just got out of control. Not at the start, because I was too young, I was just smoking hash, like, but when I was maybe 17, 18, I started taking Valium, and they just gave me a confidence. They just made me feel great, like I thought you could take on the world, you know. And always out clubbing, taking cocaine, taking E's, taking everything, anything you could give me, I'd have took it, you know. I can remember the first time I took heroin, I was drinking at the time, and I got offered it, and I always said I would try anything once, and as soon as I got offered it, I knew I was taking it. I knew it. There was no second, no thinking about it. I just went and done it, like. And at first, when I first took it, I didn't realise what I'd done, you know. But after a few weeks, I started thinking about the night that I took it, and I just thought, I'm going to try that again. Before you knew it, I was taking it 2-3 times a week. Then before you knew it, I was stealing from my parents, like, to fund the habit. And my life after heroin just consumed my whole life, like, it took over. I couldn't go through the day without taking it. And I had a full-time job, and I was making maybe €700-800 a week. And come the Tuesday, I was skint. I was tapping money from my parents, trying to get more drugs, like. I can remember the first time I told my mother that I was taking heroin. I took the day off work, and my mum was sleeping, and I stole a bottle of whiskey out of her cupboard, and I had to drink half a bottle of whiskey so before she woke up to tell her, like, because I was that ashamed of what I'd done, you know. And I can remember she just locked herself in her room, like, and I think she cried for about 2 days. She didn't know what to think. She was ashamed. She was scared. It was one thing it helps me when I think about. It helps me when I think about. I mean, when you get tempted, like, sometimes I always remember my mum's face, like, and how she was when I told her. She was absolutely disgusted. Because my parents didn't know what drugs were, even hash. They didn't know what it was, you know. They couldn't counsel me or help me, like, because they didn't know. The way they were brought up, they were hard-working people. They just worked. Drugs just wasn't in the picture. They tried to help me, and they tried, but nothing they could have done would have stopped me. Absolutely nothing they could have done, because I wanted to do it. It took me until the point of thinking about killing yourself that I actually realised I had a problem. There was a few times that I thought about committing suicide, yeah, when I was just looking about, looking at the hurt I was causing my parents, the hurt I was causing my daughter at the time. I thought to myself it'd be not better for me, it'd be better for everybody else if I wasn't there. I wouldn't be causing them all the pain and the grief that we're going through every day. My mother and that was scared of me. They would see me coming across the street, and they would lock their door and pretend they weren't in, just so they didn't have to let me in the house, you know. She was scared of me at the end. I never thought drugs would take that much from me, no. Not when I first started taking it. When I first started taking heroin, you don't think about it, you know, you just do it, like. It wasn't until the last 6 months that I really realised that I couldn't go on like this anymore. I knew I was better, you know, I knew I was better than what I was doing, like. I have a little girl, she's 10 now. When I came to the men's home in Ireland, she was 5. She was just starting school. I came on the 15th of October 2009, and I can remember her birthday was the week after. It was the week after I came to Ireland, so it was a big decision to come, you know. I had to leave her, but at the same time I knew if I didn't leave her then I wouldn't be there for her. I was looking at some jail time before I came, you know, and I knew like I had to just sort myself out, and I couldn't do it in Scotland. So I came to Ireland. Somebody that Leighton Kelly knows got us here. He done a programme with Leighton 10-15 years ago, I think, and he got me over here pretty quick. It happened within about 2 or 3 days, and I never looked back since. You know, it was hard. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life, but it was the best thing. I grew up in a religious background. I went to a Catholic school, but religion was never in my house, you know. My dad took us to church just because he thought it was the right thing to do, because that's what his mother did. But as soon as me and my sister were like 10, 11, we never stepped foot through a church door. He never forced us to because we didn't want to go. The Catholic church was boring. I can remember just sitting there and just couldn't wait to get out. So I didn't even know what Christianity was till I came to Ireland. When I came to the men's home, I was addicted to heroin mostly. That was my number one choice drug, if you could say that. And Valium, drink, cocaine if I could get it, crack, anything, absolutely anything that gave you some sort of buzz I would have took just to get away from myself, like, because I hated reality. I hated just the feeling of being normal. I took drugs since I was 12. We were smoking hash, and there wasn't 1 week out of 15 years that I hadn't took some sort of drug. If I couldn't get it through working, I'd have stole to get it from my parents, or I would have went down to the factories and stole metal from the factories and scrapped them, or anything, absolutely anything. I put a lot of time and effort into my addiction to get drugs. When I heard about the men's home being Christian based, I didn't even think about it. I knew, like, if I don't go here, I'm going to do a long time in jail, or I'm going to end up dying. So I didn't even think about the Christian side. I just thought I'll just go with the flow. I'll see what happens when I get there, you know. I actually thought I was going to hospital or something. I didn't know, with lots of doctors. I didn't actually know what I was coming to, you know. I didn't think about it. I was too busy thinking about getting clean for my daughter and my parents and myself. Before I came to the men's home, I was looking at some serious charges. At the time I didn't think they were serious, but because that was just the life I was living, you know. I was looking at false imprisonment, misuse of drugs, importing drugs across the border from Liverpool, driving down to Liverpool every week, bringing up kilos and kilos of heroin, crack cocaine, and we were selling it in the local towns. And I got done with false imprisonment. So I was looking at a minimum of 6 to 8 years. So I knew that gave me the go ahead, the get up and go to get right, you know. So God used that in my life, because if I didn't get charged with that, I'd maybe be dead. I would have took a different path in life, you know. But that's what gave me the boost to realise, look, what am I doing with my life here? When I first came to the men's home with the Christianity, I can remember all the lads praying for their dinner, and they're all sitting there with their eyes closed, and I'm looking about going, these are all mad, like. And then I can remember Pastor Dan came on the Monday night, and they were all singing Christian songs, and they were doing classes, and I thought, I don't know what I was thinking, you know. The first few days is really hard because all you're thinking about is drugs or cigarettes. Every single minute of the day you're thinking about how you can sell the TV in the living room, or run down the street and just tap a cigarette off someone. So the first few days I didn't really think about it. I just looked about and I seen the lads, and I noticed they were all different. There was something about them, and I just I can remember wanting what they had like. When I came into the men's home, the first thing I had to give up was cigarettes, and I can remember lighting burning them in the burner. So 5 minutes, he showed me around the men's home, showed me my room, showed me around and that. But in the back of my mind, I can remember those cigarettes just sitting on top of the piece of wood. So I waited till he wasn't looking, and I ran straight back round to the burner, and I opened up the door, and all I could see was the last little bit of the cigarette packet burning. So I just shut the door, and I was trying to get a bit of smoke from the burner. I started coughing, it was just smoke from the wood. And I thought, I don't need them. But they were very hard to give up. Cigarettes is one of the hardest things. Heroin, when I look back, heroin was maybe easier than the cigarettes because everywhere you look, people smoke. Been off the cigarettes 4.5 years. Almost clean from drugs, drink, almost 5 years. The 5 year this October, 4.5 years I've been clean. I can remember needing to get saved after about a week in the men's home. I can remember Pastor O'Gorman coming and doing a class, and he was talking about Jesus and how he forgave us our sins. And I can remember just when I was in Scotland about all the bad stuff I did, and I knew there was no way he would let me into heaven. So I realised that I needed Jesus in my life. I wanted to be different. I wanted to have what the other lads in the home had. So I can remember the day, it was the 19th of October. It was 4 days after I came in, Pastor was doing a class. I can remember asking the Lord to save me on the 19th of October 2009. And my life's been totally different ever since. I have never looked back, just looked forward. It's not been easy, but it's easier than living out there in the world, you know. I graduated from the men's home on November 2010, and Leighton and Pastor asked me to work in the men's home to help give a little bit back. So I decided I would give a year. I stayed there for a year working voluntary. And during that time I met my Sinead, who would later become my wife. She has a similar background to myself in addiction. And we've been married 2 years this month, 29th of March. 2 years have full-time jobs. And we recently, just before Christmas, the two of us bought ourselves a house there. We got a mortgage for a house. So God's totally changed our lives, totally changed my life from being a drug addict in Scotland to coming here and having a full-time job, having a house together with my wife, 2 kids, member of the church. It's unbelievable to think of where I was 5-6 years ago to where I am now.